Hello and welcome to another episode of Get Boosted. I'm Eric Kummel here with Matt Hempstead on a beautiful Tuesday today.
It's very beautiful. No rain.
No rain at all. Perfectly sunny, as per usual. We're going to dive into all things EU and NA LCS. The summer split is over. There's still the gauntlet, but the official playoff bracket is over. And as always, we'll be getting to your questions later, so make sure you're sending them in all throughout the show. And Matt, it was the most competitive LCS split, at least in NA and EU. It looked like maybe a changing of the guard finally in EU. But in the end, summer playoffs come to an end, and it's G2 and TSM who win.
Has that happened before?
It's just the usual.
Yeah. G2 wins their fourth straight, which is a record in like the LCK, LPL. None of those regions have done it before. LCS hasn't done it. And then TSM with their NA best third in a row. The Kings are back in both regions.
Yeah, they never left. I mean, it looked like things were kind of shaky. Not really for TSM, but it was so competitive in NA. People were talking about those top 5 teams. Yeah. Oh my goodness. And again, here we are. And G2, I would say, was definitely dominant. We'll go into that series first. Didn't drop a game to Misfits, although they probably should have dropped at least.
They definitely could have. I mean, Misfits were leading pretty much in every early game. That was their strength the entire playoffs, even regular season. Early game was Misfits' game, and they could get ahead with Maxlor doing stuff, and the Butland could hold their own against pretty much anybody. But in this series, it was the same thing as we kind of saw down the stretch for the Misfits. They got that early lead, and then they fell apart later. Part of that was just G2 being such a great team fighting and late game team that Misfits couldn't really do anything once the game got past like the 30-minute mark. So that was a little bit unfortunate. But yeah, Misfits still impressive early on, but this couldn't close against some of these G2 comps.
Yeah, and I think what you had seen with Misfits in their previous playoff rounds where they were pretty much stomping teams is, they got out to that early lead. They were averaging over 1,000 gold lead at 15 minutes. You saw a bit of that in some of these games against G2, but I mean, G2's kind of bread and butter is just kind of sit back, wait for that mid to late game, and pretty much out team fight any opponent they have. And in the majority of these team fights, even when they were behind in gold, they pretty hard outclassed Misfits, I would say, in those skirmishes.
Yeah, G2 doesn't care if they're behind whatsoever at 20 minutes, 30 minutes, because they've got this Sivir with a bunch of tanks to defend, and once you get those ricochets going, it really doesn't matter what you do. So they just pick that late game comp. Sven picks a hyper carry, whether it's Kog'Maw, whether it's that Sivir late, and then they just wait it out. And he didn't die once in this series. Sven was unkilled the entire time, and if he's your 80 carry pumping out damage, that's pretty good.
Yeah, the first time someone has gone deathless in a finals.
Is that good?
That's pretty good. It was only 3 games, though, so
still
not that impressive at all, right?
No.
Still impressive. And again, first time in EU LCS history that there's been a 3-0. G2 historically always goes for the 3-1.
That's
obviously, some game 5, so definitely a different EU finals than a lot of people were expecting. But first play we want to look at is in that game 1, and it really just showcases the communication and confidence that G2 has as a team. And you see just going down into Baron, even when they're down in numbers, they can make some outplays to the other team.
They definitely can. And I mean, it just starts off with Expect. Perkz kind of joins them on that side lane at bottom, and they're just going to pick on Alfara. Meanwhile, Misfits are like, oh, look at this. We got a 4v3. Let's just start
Easy Baron. Easy Baron.
No problem whatsoever. But G2 recognize that, hey, they both have double TP anyway, so they can join us if we need to. And they stop the recalls here on the pause. Sven's quick reaction time. Not bad getting that Sejuani out to just go away.
Yeah, I mean, if he gets hit by that, they're pretty scooped. They probably lose all 3 guys there. That Cataclysm is amazing and hilarious at the same time. 4 guys just basically standing there waiting, not knowing what to do. And then, I mean, Misfits ends up losing an inhibitor. They don't get a Baron. Just pretty impressive team play there by G2, completely taking over. And that was a huge swing moment in that game.
It was a massive swing moment. And if you didn't listen to the live broadcast, the call, as you said earlier, was, wow, G2 is good at League of Legends.
Yeah,
it's like,
so good.
Thank you,
so
Vedius.
good.
Yeah, sorry, so good. And he's not wrong, because it is a great play. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, I mean, Misfits were kind of screwed in that situation. Once G2 had that double TP, you don't always expect Perkz to take teleport on LeBlanc, but he did in this situation, and it definitely paid off because they just had such an advantage all over the map. They could have 2 guys bot and still threaten Baron.
Yeah, and I feel like game one, you kind of saw Misfits play pretty standard, kind of similar to how G2 would play, and it almost like, I think the broadcast mentioned this, I think DeFicio said they just kind of see if they can keep up with G2 kind of at their own game, kind of get that measurement in game one, and then after they dropped that, you kind of saw more interesting picks came out in the next two games. You saw Maxlor on that Rengar.
That's right.
In game two. How do you feel about that pick?
I mean, it is kind of his go-to pocket jungler. He pulled it out in his previous series. Mixed results, he went 3-3-3 in the semifinals, but still, he just kind of likes it. It brings a different edge and more of an aggression to it. He did pick up first blood in that game with it, but again, if you're going up against one of these team fighting comps in G2 and they just like to group up as 5, it's going to be tough to get in there and actually assassinate an AD carry, especially one like Sven going up against Alistar. Rengar's not that great.
Yeah, and I think you kind of saw that team fighting prowess of the G2 comp. We've got another clip here from that second game. You just kind of saw that the front line so powerful on G2. At times there wasn't a lot Misfits could do in some of these fights.
No, and this is a great engage coming off the Baron. I mean, Misfits goes in there to stop it, but once again, they just pop Righteous Glory. Maokai's all zones them out of there. But you kind of think Maxwell's going to try something, but again, they're grouped as 5, so you can't get onto these carries and then expect and trick flash over the wall. And no matter what you do, power people can't really burst down these tanks, even with a decent shockwave there. Hansama not doing enough as he gets just focused by expect. And then Perks is going to pop up right here.
Yeah, I mean, this play he does over here is pretty fantastic. And his Lucian has kind of become a bit of a meme because,
yes.
I mean, G2 didn't perform too well around it when he would play it in the regular season, but he was fantastic in this game. The primary carry for them in this set, and I think he kind of mentioned it in interviews after the game. He said his Lucian's very clean since he saw Faker scrimmed against him. He played at an MSI, and he kind of wanted to pick it up then, and I think he's pretty good at that champion.
Yeah, not bad. Good reaction time, dodging that Shen taunt, going over the wall, getting a kill on PoE, who was kind of... PoE didn't play very well this series, I will say. He played Orianna every game, but his shockwaves were less than impactful a lot of the time. Just either a one-man onto somebody or just completely whiffed it, getting spell shielded away in game 3 happened a lot. The one time it did have an impact was in game 2 when it kind of helped Hansama get a big not first blood, but a huge cash-in on the surprise Draven pick.
Yeah, we'll get to that Draven pick in a sec, but I think we got to talk about the PoE special on Orianna, which is the Nashor's Tooth, Rod of Ages kind of build. I mean, he's said it's kind of more for tanks. When he's playing against a more tanky lineup, he likes to get those extra autos in. But I mean, a lot of these fights, the way he's playing, he's not autoing at all. He's playing so far away, you have to be pretty close up to actually utilize those autos. So why not just go for a more regular Orianna build if you're going to be playing more defensively like that?
Yeah, I don't know. And even that lack of damage kind of hurts you when you're trying to take out Sven in that as like the lone carry. A lot of these team comps that he was playing Orianna in too weren't exactly high damage. It's a meta where you kind of have these 2 main carries and the rest are tanks. So, I mean, going Roa is good for a late game thing and you're a bit more tanky, when it kind of makes sense because G2 likes to take it late as well. But at the same time, Nashor's Tooth and that consistent auto attacks in the tanks when you should be trying to get Sven down with a good shockwave, a little confusing from PoE.
Yeah, and I think Nashor's Tooth, I mean, it's not a terrible item, but you basically have to preface your whole build around that item. Right. I feel like you need more attack speed, you need more on-hit items on someone like a Teemo. That's why it's so great on Teemo. Everyone should be playing Teemo, by the way. But I didn't really feel... I feel like it took away from his Orianna in these games when he was building it because, yeah, they needed that extra burst to just take out Sven on whatever carry or hyper carry he was on. And when you lose that amount of burst, I mean, that's when he's able to survive. And we saw in a lot of these team fights, Sven was kind of the deciding factor for how G2 came away with those fights because he was either untouched or survived the initial burst from Misfits. So,
yeah, weird build from PoE. Sometimes he's on his game, but this one, I mean... He was doing okay in lane against Perks. He got a lot of help as well early on to get some decent CS leads, but in the late game, shockwaves were not on point, and then, yeah, the build was underwhelming.
Yeah, and they dropped game 2, and then game 3, they figure you got to do something. You got to do something special now. Since Freeze hasn't been in EU, haven't seen Draven really. Not much at all, but Hansama, a guy who's very comfortable on that champion, so they felt like they had to go for something. They bring out the Draven, and I mean, it looked pretty good early. He didn't die. He racked up tons of adoration stacks, and the play we've got here is, of course, the moment you want to see as a Draven when you get that much aligned first kill and you see that disgusting amount of gold pop up.
It was a lot of gold. And this is one of the better shockwaves that PoE had, able to get it on perks, and then Hansama with that one hit
1300 free BF sword.
Free BF sword, and then he gets another one as well. Not that you have a ton of cash in after the first one, but still, I mean, he picked up, I think it was 1300 like you said, plus the actual kill money. So when he recalled, he picked up a Lord Dominic's Regard in full after those couple kills. But I mean, even before that, he had a chance to get some kills, but I think Maxlor may have taken one, and there was unfortunate situations where he just couldn't catch in a little earlier.
Yeah.
Would have been interesting to see if he could have snowballed off of an earlier kill in the game.
Yeah, but even when he got that kill there, you saw Misfits had like almost a 4,000 gold lead, and the Draven, I mean, yeah, is just one-shotting a late-game item like that. You've got to feel pretty good if you're Misfits in that sense, but again, it was almost like you saw the problems they had early during the regular split, and really most of the regular split. They turned things around during the playoffs, but it's just that closing out games, knowing what to do objectively, like where to focus when you have that lead. And G2, again, one of the best teams, if not the best teams in EU at playing from behind. They didn't really give Misfits anything to go off of.
No, and it helps when you have a champion like Kog'Maw on your team who honestly does more DPS than a Draven does in the late game, especially when you have that Runaan's build and you can hit multiple targets. Draven only can get one guy, and you have to be pretty close to the other team as well. Draven's auto attack range is, I think it's average or a little under, but
yeah, I think it's 550.
Yeah, but you have to, I mean, you still have to play around your axes, and you have to get right in there, whereas Kog'Maw can press W and also do missile barrage stuff. So, I mean, he's a guy who can hit multiple tanks, really shred them down, and still did more damage in the late game than Draven did.
Yeah, and looking at Sven's Kog'Maw, we've got another play here that highlights that. I mean, a pretty even team fight, and then basically one aggressive flash from a Kog'Maw can completely change a fight and swing things in G2's way. And that's pretty much what happened.
That's exactly what happened. Misfits thought they could do the Baron here, but still, just bring G2 into it. Try to take down these carries who are just walking up pretty close.
Draven also not great for doing Baron.
No, he's not overly quick. But still, this is a pretty even fight going on. Trick gets dropped early on, so Misfits gets a bit hyper-aggressive here. Sven all the way in the back, just putting out damage, and then all of a sudden, he just turns it on with his W up. Look at the damage he's pouring out.
Yeah, I mean, look at how low all 5 of them are. They basically all have to flash away, and then it's just easy chasing for G2. And you saw earlier in that fight a nice flash by Perks to avoid the shockwave from PoE. But yeah, I mean, all it takes is just that one flash by Sven to just completely overtake a team fight. And even though he didn't get any kills there, it was just dominant.
Yeah, would have liked a different decision there as well. But here is another Power of Evil shockwave, kind of gets brought in. Tries to take Trick away from the Baron, but instead, spell shield. Trick can't do anything. Or, sorry, PoE can't do anything. He gets taken out. And then G2 wipes the floor with him, with the Baron, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it would have been better served to save that shockwave for a team fight. I know PoE has had some insane Baron steals with that ultimate in his past, but especially, I don't know, I feel like that would be better served to use in the team fight to try and swing it over to Misfits' side. So I'm not 100% sold on that play, Brian.
No, okay, just questionable decision making, and then even after they got that initial pick on the Trick, maybe just go back to the Baron instead of trying to chase down into a bush you don't have warded and has Sven sitting in with Kog'Maw.
Yeah.
So, just over-aggressive at times and questionable decision-making, but again, in the previous series, Misfits was on point, especially against Fnatic. They were making the right choices, the right Baron moves, not so much against G2.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, Misfits had a good chance, probably should have won that third game, but I think overall G2 really just showed that they are still the better team. They're still the best team in EU, and that's got to give them a lot of confidence heading into Worlds. And Series MVP for that, Mithy, 0-3-33, and that's already pretty insane. Yep. And again, you saw his Alistair wreak havoc in this series. First, it was Senkux, who just got tilted off the face of the earth, as anyone would in some of these team fights. And again, just the zone control Mithy puts and the pressure he puts with that champion is insane.
Yeah, if there's an Orianna on the other team, it just seems like Mithy's going to put him in terrible situations where they can't get a good shockwave off. PoE felt that this series, Sinkuk's felt it in the Splay series.
Yep.
And it's just incredible the way you can not only protect his carries, but also get the other enemy mid laner killed just by getting behind him and then headbutting them into the other team.
Yeah, that's the most painful part, is right at the last second as G2 is winning the team fights. One little headbutt into 4 G2 members, and they're gone.
Yeah, see it.
But, yeah, so a 3-0 for G2. How are you feeling confidence-wise for them heading into Worlds now?
I mean, they're unquestionably the best team in Europe, you got to say at this point.
Absolutely.
Again, it was a tough road for them, but after Rift Rivals, they picked it up. They only dropped a couple weird series there, one to Rocket, I think, and then they lost one to Fnatic as well. But in the playoffs, the Splay series was very close, but super clean the rest of the way. H2K didn't stand a chance. Misfits didn't stand a chance. So the only thing at World is they really do like to rely on this late game kind of scaling composition. And if you fall behind too hard early, you're going to be in trouble. So they're going to have to maybe try to adapt their playstyle a little bit and figure something else out, because I think those Korean teams are going to have something in place for that. Yeah,
I think we've seen in past Worlds a similar issue for the top teams from EU and NA, whether it's TSM or G2, where they have this trend of getting farther behind early on in games, and they're just so much better than other teams in their region that, yeah, they can come from behind and come back to win those games. But, yeah, not even just against Korean teams, but other top teams from pretty much any region across the world. Right. You get behind that early or in the mid-game fall behind, you're way less likely to make any of those comebacks because these are the best teams in the world. So hopefully that G2 and TSM kind of, I think they know that, they've experienced that at last Worlds. They'll kind of have that sense going forward.
For EU, it was at Rift Rivals, it was kind of the same situation. They had their play styles and they'd like to play to late game, and then all of a sudden NA came in with these aggressive junglers, got that early lead, and then it was over. So, I mean, at some point, you got to change your play style. It really worked for G2 against Misfits and these other European teams that maybe are not so aggressive early on and don't know how to close out games, but on a world stage, with the LPL, with the LCK, even the LMS, you're going to have to figure something else out.
That is true. Well, the other final on Sunday.
That's right. Immortals,
TSM. I think people were expecting, a lot of people expecting a 5-game set either way, Immortals, TSM. This was thought to be pretty close, and it was only 4 games. It was probably closer than that. Definitely should have been 5. We'll get into that a little later. But starting off with that first game, it kind of looked like you saw a bit of nerves from Immortals. There was that first gank down bottom where you saw a late Black Shield from Olay and a missed timing on the rocket jump by Cody Sun that immediately put that bot lane behind. You think that was just kind of a lot of these guys, their first presence on such a big stage, bit of the jitters there?
Yeah, as a team, they did look a little nervous overall. I mean, Pobolter was a guy who has been there before to several finals, like Smithy as well. But yeah, the bot lane was kind of such a strong point for them during the regular season and even these earlier playoff series. But in this one, it did look like Doublelift and Biofrost outdueled them, at least early on, with a lot of help from Svenskeren as well. But yeah, especially on that first gank, you're like, oh, I mean, you should be able to escape this Gragas gank fairly easily. You put the Black Shield on, you just hold on that jump for a little bit, and you're pretty much okay. Yeah. So after that, it probably got a little bit worse for them in game 1 just because, oh, we screwed up, we're feeling the nerves, and game 1 kind of got out of hand.
Yeah, but even after a bit of that misplay, it was still pretty even for the first, at least half of that game. But we had a clip here of a team fight that went in the mid lane that was a pretty big swing for TSM, and you can see some nice coordination as a team, just pretty much a CC chain against Immortals in this one.
You mentioned how good Rakan is earlier. Yeah. And he really swung this fight pretty much full circle with some of his ridiculous engages from like out of nowhere.
Yeah, again, this clip coming up, Rakan, the champion is pretty insane. He's just an insane champion, and solo queue professional, he's pretty wild, and Biofrost can play him pretty well.
Yeah, and it looked a little sketchy here because this is a really Immortals team comp where you want to get that Jarvan Galio engage, but Doublelift flashes out of it right away. And then this is one of the turning points here after they kind of overcommit. Cody Sun's all the way on the other side trying to get Haunter, used his jump, and here Biofrost gets a sweet engage, gets that knock up on 2 and then another charm onto 3. So that's a pretty long CC chain, and then Syndra adds to it with the stun as well. At that point, I mean, Cody Sun maybe got 3 autos off in that fight while the tank line got demolished by Doublelift. So very impressive engage overall, and then communication as well for fixing the follow-up on the CC.
Yeah, and another thing maybe, of course, that eventually leads to a TSM Baron, and I mean, that's a pretty big swing in the middle of a game, and a big key again. In the first game of a finals, you probably don't want to let Bjergsen have Syndra. That's just, get him on one of his most comfortable champions, get nice and warmed up in a series. Probably something you don't want to do. Again, you've seen just how amazing he is on that champion, and because of that, Immortals took a bit of a different approach to pick bans in Game 2. All 5 bans centered at the mid lane. That's insane.
It is insane. That's pretty ridiculous.
And TSM even banned some too.
They did. So it's very mid lane focused. I think there were like 7 mid laners banned out of that contest, which is pretty nuts. But you still leave Bjergsen with that Kassadin at the end of the day, which is a pick he's shown from time to time. But it did end up working out pretty decently for Immortals.
Yeah, I mean, clearly they kind of changed their focus, as we mentioned, try and ban. It's kind of an interesting approach. I don't know. Yes, Bjergsen was on a Kassadin, but this guy's champion pool is so deep. Like, you'd basically have to coordinate with TSM for them to ban 5 mid laners as well, all ones that Bjergsen would play. But I mean, Immortals felt like they had to change something up in that draft, and yeah, it did work out. But I think the main reason Immortals came out ahead on G2, of course, was Xmithie.
On TSM, yeah.
Yes, he was. Yeah, that makes more sense. But the main reason Immortals came out ahead in Game 2 was the play of Xmithie on that Sejuani. I mean, it's a meme. Sejuani, Xmithie.
Yeah, they go hand in hand.
Yeah, we've got a clip here of the meme somewhat being reborn, but I mean, it doesn't really matter. He played fantastic on Sejuani. He dominated Svenskeren, I would say, in this. Pretty much not dominated in this game for sure, but he was probably better throughout the series. But again, Xmithie on Sejuani is great.
Yeah, he definitely is good on at least new Sejuani. We'll say that much. But yeah, Svenskeren was caught out there. He had to use his ulti away, so pretty big edge for Immortals early on. Continue on with the red invade. But TSM keeps trying to go for it. Looks a little sketchy for them at the start. Brings in the teleports. Biofrost, another great engage. But here is the ulti. Oh boy, he missed. Unfortunately, Sejuani ult is new now, and it actually still does something. Yeah. So good damage, good zoning. They can take out Svenskeren there, and then eventually Pobelter just rain damage on the rest of the team.
Yeah, I think that was a little bit of a questionable re-engage there by Svenskeren. It looked, maybe he thought Bjergsen, I don't know, didn't have Rift Walk up or something, but so he went in to try and save him, but Bjergsen just Rift Walks out, and he's fine, and then TSM re-engages. They end up losing 4 guys. That leads to a Immortals Baron triple kill for Pobelter, and that's pretty much the swing of the game. Immortals would go on to close that one out. So maybe a bit of a miscommunication there, but yeah, he misses a Sejuani ult. Doesn't matter. They clean up the fight, and I believe he had a 100% kill participation in that game. So
pretty good.
You're allowed to miss an ult. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, and you can call it a miss if you want to. Sure, he didn't get the stun, but it still does something now, and it creates that huge circle. No one can walk through that to get into the team fight. I mean, it's still zone double lift right out of there. So, I mean, you can't flame him too hard.
No.
Even for the, Game 4 might have happened again. You can flame him for that one a little bit, but still, it's like, this isn't the old Xmithie miss where he literally field goaled it and it cost his team the team fight. It was still a decent ultimate.
Yeah, and I think there's more players for certain things on Immortals that you could maybe flame for this series loss. But after Game 2, tied at 1, you had yourself a series for sure, and then Game 3, another competitive one. Immortals actually had a lead for most of the game, and then there was a key team fight around Elder Dragon that we've got a clip of here, where Cody-san on the Jinx, the main carry, the main damage source, super fed. You can't, if he gets caught out, it's dead. The fight is done, and that's exactly what happens in this clip.
Yeah, 100% it is. And I mean, this comp literally revolves around Jinx. If you're they pick that first rotation, which is unheard of, picking a Jinx that early, very rare. Going along with the Corki, it's those 2 guys. So I mean, TSM just comes in with the Cho'Gath, huge threat to the Elder Dragon because you just eat it, no problem. But Cody-san kind of loses focus and just steps onto the Orianna ball.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to pick that up for bonus stats. I don't know if, and Ole, right when he stepped on there, he was mid-Q animation, so he wasn't able to devour him up and keep him safe. And yeah, as soon as he goes down, you get some resets for double if the damage is done. You see Pobelter trying to TP there to distract TSM, and that was the play where Haunter went back, recalled, and had a 1v1 against Corky, which was one of the saddest things I've ever seen. I don't know what you're supposed to do as a Corky or an AD carry at that point with a Cho'Gath, which is the size of the Nexus, running at you, just womp.
Yeah, he didn't even have, I don't even think he had Feast up Haunter for that fight. He just still eat him, silenced him, and walked at him, and that was it. It's pretty outrageous. But yeah, I mean, when you have this entire comp based around Jinx, and they got him some early kills too, so they did a great job with that. The game plan was good if you have that early hyper carry, AD carry, and you actually get him some early kills, but then you can't step onto an Orianna ulti at a big Elder Dragon fight, and if you're Olay, it's not worth the Q there. You got to be looking at Cody Sun the entire time, waiting to scoop him up.
Yeah, and I kind of wanted to give Cody Sun a break and say, oh, you know, Bjergsen kind of hid the ball in the terrain in the wall, so he couldn't see it. But when you watch it a few times, it's pretty clearly there. I don't know if he was just kind of focused in on getting that Elder Dragon, because basically it's not like he was even getting an auto on a prime target, really. He was just kind of smacking the front line to take that extra step. Maybe he thought Olay would be there to devour him, but you should be relying on your support for stuff like that. But I mean, give him a chance. You know, you don't need to walk right onto a shockwave for that. So that just one misplay like that, and that pretty much threw the game for Immortals right there, and gave TSM the swing, 2-1 lead. And we will say Immortals responded super well in Game 4.
Great bounce back.
Yeah, you think you might get a bit of tilt after losing a close game like that where you had an early lead, but Immortals came storming back in Game 4, got out to a huge lead from just some stellar play around the map. We got a clip of it. Just great team coordination, and Flame on Rumble is pretty amazing. You see that here in this highlight. He hasn't played it much. I don't even know if he played it this split.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Going into this clip too, he already had like a double kill at bot lane at one of those tower dives. So Immortals got off to a great start. They're already up like 4 kills to nothing before this dive happened.
Yeah, and you see it's just great team coordination all around. And this Rumble ult, it's like half on the wall, but it's so perfectly placed that even when they flash or jump over, they're still on that red carpet taking the damage.
Yeah, and it also prevents the guys at the turret from actually running away or trying to help. So from there, there's cleanup. Flame gets another double kill. They clean up Bjergsen under the turret on that Corki, and it's a great start. They're up 7-0 in kills early on.
7-0, huge gold lead.
Yeah.
Great, Game 5.
Here we go.
Let's go, can't wait.
Oh, hold on a second.
And then the rest of that game happened. I mean, that's got to be pretty painful for Immortals. I mean, there was a bunch of different team fights that TSM was able to come back. They were scratching and clawing at their base, trying desperately to hold on to some of their inhibitors for a while. And I mean, yes, Immortals should have closed out that game, but you got to give a lot of credit to TSM for just holding on and just getting little advantages, whatever they could trade to get something back their way. After that 7-0 start, the game ended 20-8, a 20-1 kill run.
Yeah, they got 1 kill the rest of the game.
Yeah, and that 1 kill was basically Haunter getting greedy for a red buff. He gets caught out and falls and gets caught by Immortals. But another clip we want to highlight is basically the ending fight for TSM, hanging out in their base, defending their inhibitor, where Immortals, even though they had fallen behind in gold later on in this game, they were still pushing back and forth, being the aggressors. And again, they're pushing on TSM's base to try and get another inhibitor, but Biofrost, Biodaddy.
Yeah, I think we might have one clip before that one with the Smithy ulti.
Oh yes,
even better.
Even better.
So yeah, this is like, looks like Biofrost is kind of caught here.
Debate.
It is a bait. Smithy, here we go. Oh boy, there it goes. Again, it's hard to hit that on one guy, especially Biofrost kind of doing the sidestep. But once that misses, you're like, okay, Immortals should just play safe, whatever, chill for a bit. Ends up, oh, we're gonna keep pushing the top wave now. And without the Sejuani ultimate up, Biofrost gets a good engage there on Pobelter.
Yep.
So Garen brings him in, and he gets taken out, and then TSM chases him down. And once again, I believe this would net them another Baron, which stalled the game. Hang in there. See you
now, if Smithy does hit that ult, not only Biofrost is dead, and then he's not engaging on Pobelter there in the top lane, but I mean, it's tough. It's tough. It's a tough one to hit.
It is.
Probably should have, but yeah, then you see here TSM. Great turnaround, nice flash there by Bjergsen, and then the instant ult away by Doublelift. Look how low everyone is too. Look how close Immortals is to winning that
almost
fight.
Cleaned that up.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was Baron, and it's one thing for the ult to miss. I'm okay with that because again, it's harder than it looks to hit that Sejuani ultimate on one guy.
Yeah.
Because it's not like the old one where it kind of exploded at the end. This one really just turned into that slow. But the decision to keep pushing after you lose a crucial ultimate like that, little questionable, and then Pobelter just got a little aggressive on it. So it was kind of a whole team thing, not just, oh, like Smithy missed an ultimate, let's flame his ass. So it was rough.
Yeah, and like, I mean, again, it was basically a whole snowball of TSM slowly rolling, getting back into this game. They got a couple Barons to get back into it, and I mean, eventually just, you've got to feel that, again, it was a bit of this pressure that Immortals was feeling. You kind of saw it early on in this series. And again, even after that tough loss in Game 3, they rebound super well, come out to a dominant start in Game 4. But you got to feel like once TSN started winning a couple of these team fights, slowly getting back into the game, maybe that pressure started mounting to Immortals, because at that point, even though TSM's up 2-1 in the series, all the pressure on that game is on Immortals.
100%. All of it is. And it really seemed to show at some point. They were forcing things, and then once you start to feel that lead go away, TSM starts just crawling back into it, like you said, defending their base time after time, even though they're down like 10k gold, getting a couple kills, and then Immortals couldn't do anything. Like you said, they got one kill the rest of the game after they had that 7-0 lead. You just get frustrated. You start trying to force turret dives, whatever, and TSM took advantage of it.
Yeah, and we've got to, again, we already kind of shouted him out, but much like in EU, MVP of this series was Biofrost. I mean, he got Rakan in, I believe, 3 out of these 4 games, and he was fantastic in all 4 of them. And I've got to say, a lot of hype, deservedly so, was coming with Ole into this series. He was the best support in NA throughout the split, but in this series, in almost every game, I think Biofrost outperformed him.
I 100% agree with you, and it's kind of unfortunate because I was underwhelmed by what Ole was doing this final. Sometimes he was caught up position warding just by himself, and he wasn't the big playmaker that we expected of him. And as a team, if you're getting demolished by this Rakan pick over and over, it's tough to keep giving it away because Biofrost was just turning fights on its head with some of these engages, and it was difficult to see Immortals just give it away time after time. Didn't even pick it.
Yeah, they definitely needed to change something with that draft process to get that out of the hands of Biofrost. And yeah, Ole he definitely didn't seem like his normal self. No. There was, at times in that first game, not only the Black Shield, but he also just kind of got one-shot by Bjergsen at one point in the mid lane, which kind of snowballed into a team fight win for them. So I don't know exactly what was going on there, but definitely not the performance we were expecting from him. So 3-1 TSM, 10 straight finals, 6 championships, 5 now for Bjergsen, which is absolutely insane. Yeah. Pretty impressive. TSM, we always get asked the world's expectations for them. You feeling more or less confident with them as compared to last year heading into Worlds?
I think you got to feel more confident in what they bring, but then again, I mean, we were pretty confident last year that they would do fairly well. Ended up being that 3-3, see you later, which is a little sad times. But yeah, I think this is a pretty good team overall. You've seen them be able to mix and match playstyles in this series. They really prioritize that Xayah Rakan lane and have great success with it. But again, if Doublelift is playing the way he did, which not a lot of people were talking about, but he was fantastic in that final team fight against Immortals. He had a great buster shot to keep Ole away from him and then just cleaned up the fight afterwards. So his positioning was on point. He looks like he's on the best level of his career still, which is pretty impressive. So I really like everything that TSM's bringing to the table right now, different comps, and their confidence is sky high.
Yeah, and in some of their post-game interviews, you saw them on the desk with Dash. The whole team was there. Don't think Biofrost said a word the entire interview, which is great. That's just who he is. I love it. Doublelift and Bjergsen talked most of the time. But Doublelift, he got asked, what do you think you guys need to do differently heading into this Worlds? And he kind of jokingly said, get lucky, which I realized, yeah, he's joking around with it, but it is kind of true.
It is.
That's kind of the main difference. They need to get kind of lucky. Get a good group or get matchups that they're comfortable with. That's kind of the main thing going into Worlds, even if you're a pretty confident team.
Yeah, I mean, if you get the first team out of the LPL and then the second seed out of LCK or something like that, even though I know it's impossible because TSM has the first seed technically, so it won't happen. But I mean, if you draw Flash Wolves and then you draw like SKT, it's not good.
Yeah, I think there is. I saw a possibility for a group that would be, I believe it was G2, TSM, SKT, and it might have even been the top seed from China. It was a Chinese team. I can't remember.
Can you have G2 and TSM in the same group? Is that even a thing?
I think you can, because TSM is like, they're not part of Pool 1, even though they're the top seed. Oh, right.
That's super unfortunate.
Yeah, so they might have an absolutely insane group where they'll be in tough. So
yeah, that'd be a bizarre group.
That'd be pretty tough. We're going to get to your questions in just a minute, but before we do that, let's talk about the other team in this finals. Immortals going to Worlds for the first time. Again, this series is probably closer than a 3-1.
Yeah.
Games 3 and 4, basically 3 of the 4 games, I would say, were super close the whole time. How do you feel about them going into their first Worlds performance? If Ole kind of seemed to not play himself in this stage, maybe that will prepare him for Worlds, or maybe we'll see that happen again for him.
Yeah, nerfs will definitely be a concern because, again, I do think that was a major factor. They just looked off and mispositioning, which you don't usually see. Ole was probably a bit less aggressive than we're used to seeing from him as well.
Yeah.
So that's a bit concerning. But as a whole, in this series, you still saw what makes them great, and that's that Smithy can be super involved early on and get them kills. Pobelter's a solid mid laner who can probably hold his own and play safe against pretty much anyone in the world. I mean, he's not going to beat guys like Faker or BDD or anything like that, but he will hold his own and he'll be okay. So I like what they're bringing to the table. Great team fighting ability, but again, just stay calm and finish these games slowly and don't make these big risks that they kind of did. They overreached in this series, did things they're not used to doing. Like Smithy will usually just calm this team down and say, you know what, we made a mistake, that's cool, let's regroup, whatever. Something was different this time around, but I still think they showed in this finals that they're a great team to represent North America.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the whole top half, Flame, McSmithy, and Pobelter, were all pretty solid throughout this series. It was just the bot lane that didn't play up to their standard because they set a ridiculously high standard throughout the regular split. One of the top 2 bottom lanes in the league. And I think Cody Sun had a couple of positioning mistakes that cost them pretty heavily in some of these games. But yeah, I think they will put forward a pretty solid performance for NA when it comes to Worlds.
I agree. I think so far the 2 seeds that they're sending are pretty good.
And that 3rd seed.
Oh, FlyQuest. Yes.
That is going to be interesting. We're gonna dissect the gauntlet, preview it a lot more tomorrow on the show. We'll really dive into at least those first round matchups, who we think the favorites are. Dig FlyQuest has so much potential for memery.
I'm excited for that.
That'll be interesting. We'll get into that more. But right now, it's question time.
Ooh, boy.
Everybody's favorite time, question time.
That's right.
QT.
Question time.
We got to start calling it cutie.
Cutie.
Question time.
Cutie pie time.
Yeah.
Question
No
time,
pie.
time.
Just cutie.
What if we get pie, though? It's good.
Ooh.
All right. First question, Eric. From XKilla555.
Okay.
Do you think Biofrost deserved the MVP for the NALCS final series?
Absolutely. I think he definitely deserved that recognition. I mean, pretty much every game he was their main engage in some of these fights, and he was just constantly knocking up multiple guys. And you heard it on the mic check that they released today in that 4th game. It's pretty simple in their comms. All he says is, in that deciding team fight that TSM wins the game, he just says, "I'm a flash on Lucian." That's all he says, and they're like, okay. He flashes, gets them, and that's a fight that wins them the game. And I mean, he's so confident. He's a quiet guy. I mean, he's not really in your face, but he was so consistent and fantastic for them in that series. Definitely deserves that honor.
Yeah, it's easy to give it to a guy like Bjergsen or Doublelift just because they rack up kills, and it's like, oh, they're doing all the damage, whatever, sure. But I mean, Biofrost was the guy that set up a lot of these kills. He was engaging in all these team fights, like you said, and his Rakan play was out of this world with 3-man charms all the time. So yeah, I do think he should be MVP. Even in these games he was losing, he found ways to find picks to keep TSM involved. So I would say Biofrost is the MVP. You can also mention a guy like Sven. I do think he played fairly well as well, getting the bot lane involved. making them have the edge over Cody Sun and Ole and kind of throwing the Immortals balling off their game, but I think it's Biofrost.
Yeah, and I'm just glad that EU and NA both giving some recognition to the supports in these finals, and they both played super well.
Shout out to support players.
Shout outs.
There you go. Xkill's got another question.
Okay.
Regarding the NA Gauntlet. Who's going to make it out? We'll give a quick answer because we're going to go hardcore tomorrow. I'll probably take Cloud9. The one in is pretty helpful. And they've had a lot of time, so much time to game plan for something.
That might be a bad thing that they...
I don't know, but yeah, we'll see. I think they can pull it out.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to have been 3 weeks nearly.
Yeah.
By the time they're actually playing their set. I mean, you gotta believe a little more in CLG, right? After they're 3-0.
That's the mistake, Eric.
Yeah, right. If you want them to do well, CLG is going to do terrible. They're going to get swept by FlyQuest after they reverse sweep Dignitas. But I think C9's the favorite as well, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, CLG out of nowhere, kind of 3-0 Dignitas. I don't know what that was.
But it is pretty easy to see them getting 3-0'd by whoever they play in that round.
By Dignitas.
They're so all over the place, you never know what you're going to get with them.
On Saturday, I wouldn't be surprised if Dig or FlyQuest 3-0'd them.
Yeah, what you will know is Huhi is their best player.
Yeah, so all you haters from back in the day.
Yep.
Huhi's amazing. One of my favorite players to watch.
Draws bans and can play meta.
That's right.
It's amazing.
AEX or AX, I don't know. Do you think Fnatic will make Worlds?
I think on the EU side, like Cloud9, as the final boss, I think they're probably the favorites in this gauntlet. I know they didn't look very good against Misfits, but I still think they're a pretty solid team. So yeah, I think they'll make it.
They look pretty good against the meaningless third place match against H2K. Reckless was doing some crazy things with spell shields on like Orianna ults and whatnot. So
yeah, I think he spell shielded everyone in that game. And there was that one highlight in their base where he flashed in, single-handedly won them that fight. He had like over 200 CS more than anyone else in the game on that Sivir game. He is insane on that champion. He looked rock solid in that series. I think they'll make it.
All right, I'm with you. I'm going to mispronounce this name. I'm going to go with X-Ipu.
That sounds right to me.
Has CLG proven to be favorite for the gauntlet? I don't think so.
No.
I would say not. Yes, they 3-0'd Dignitas, but they also got 3-0'd by Immortals. And you just never know what they expect from this team. So I don't think they're ever the favorite, but they're also like never the underdog, if you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah, what you definitely can't do is judge this team on one series because, after that Immortals one, it was like, holy smokes, this team's bad. Disband them. I mean, you got to get rid of everyone but Huhi. And then against Dig, it was like, Golden Age is back. Yep. Here they come. I mean, if you want CLG to win the gauntlet, then definitely have no faith in them at all. They have no chance. And then maybe they'll do well. I don't think they're the favorite, even though they 3-0 Dig. I know C9 didn't exactly put up an inspiring performance in quarterfinals, but that was so long ago, everyone's forgotten about it by now anyways. Yeah. Still think they're the favorite.
I'm with you. CLG, don't trust them. That's good life advice. Do not trust CLG.
I think what that series did, though, is take away some faith in Dignitas because a lot of people,
myself included,
were thinking that Dig's probably maybe the favorite in that gauntlet. But once you get 3-0'd by CLG, you definitely lose a lot of hype. So.
Yeah, but it was a different CLG, so who knows?
That's true. I think it more takes away from Dig than pumps up CLG.
I'm with you. But Dignitas did look good against TSM. Again, we'll get to the gauntlet tomorrow.
Yeah.
So that's exciting. We got a question from the one and only KT Smep.
Oh, wow. I knew he was a big fan.
Yeah, big fan of the show, Smep. Good to see you. What do you think about KT, his own team, of course? Will they fall apart? Because poor KT Rolster, man. Got 3-0'd by Samsung. The super team not even going to Worlds. That's bad. That's not good. You build this team to beat SKT, reverse sweep. See you later. And then Samsung, who just struggled, they did a reverse sweep of their own. And then there's KT in the final gauntlet round, and they're gone.
3 chances.
That's right.
They had to win one separate set 3 different times, and they're going to Worlds. Didn't make it there. There's no reason for this team to explode and have players go everywhere, but with just the way that the Korean scene is and how insanely competitive it is, I bet you a lot of these guys are on different teams next year. I don't necessarily think they should, but I think they probably will be.
It's, it's such a weird situation because this team
It's insane.
definitely should be going to Worlds when you look at this roster. It is an all-star team from Korea. They built it like that. They built it like a super team, like in the NBA. It's like the Golden State Warriors. But they won, so it's not like the Golden State Warriors, which is unfortunate. But yeah, the only thing that could tear them apart is them being like a bunch of egos and saying, wow, we lost. See ya.
You guys suck.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens, but definitely a disappointment for KT not to be going to Worlds, obviously. But they're still probably a top 4 team in the world.
Yeah, and again, this should really just, it showcases how insane Korea is that this team can't make it to Worlds when, yeah, they would definitely probably be better than the 4th team in this tournament, but they would be one of the top teams at this tournament, and they're not even going. So we'll see what the future holds for them. I hope they stay together, though.
Yeah, definitely an exciting team. A couple of compliments there.
Oh, boy.
They like your rainy shirt.
Oh, does it look rainy?
No, it doesn't. I just
Okay.
sold you out there.
Nice.
Ivan Neshkov says, love you guys. Nice work. Wow. Cold Bubby guy has a trio of questions for us as well, but also said,
Trio.
enjoy these live shows. Love from
thank
Serbia.
you. Serbia. Shout outs to Serbia. Thanks for watching
That's right.
all the way from there. I wish I knew what time it was.
It must be
in
late.
Serbia. It's probably pretty late.
Like 10 or
If it's
something.
late, thanks for staying up. If it's not, thanks anyways.
I guess
thanks
10's
for
not
watching.
that late.
Yeah. What if he wakes up at 5 a.m.?
You never know.
Staying up late for us.
Good on you. Question 1.
Okay.
Who do you think is going as 3rd seed for both EU and NA to Worlds? I guess we said
C9
Fnatic
Fnatic.
and Cloud9. Pretty ballsy predictions.
You know, I might do some research tonight for tomorrow's show to throw some bombshells. I'll tell you exactly why I think FlyQuest will win.
I do think FlyQuest can win a couple series.
A couple?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
I think they might beat Dig.
I think it might be Dig, and then again, CLG is a toss-up. Could go anywhere. It's literally a coin flip. You can't deny that if it's FlyQuest CLG, it could go either.
It'll be a clown fiesta. I think whoever that series will just really showcase that there should be no faith in the 3rd seed from NA. But we'll dive into all things FlyQuest tomorrow.
For sure. He says it's a 6-hour time difference, so it's about 10 o'clock over there.
Okay.
It's not too late. Question 2. You ready, Eric?
I'm ready.
Does TSM stand any chance of getting out of groups this year, having in mind that SKT and RNG are seeded as 2nd seeds? And that is the concern. It's totally... I'm excited for the live group draw show because every year you get the live look in onto a team that's just like, oh, God, what happened?
Yeah, it basically takes one sentence for you to see an entire team's hopes and dreams crushed
Yes.
when you see what group they're in. And it can be pretty sad, but I feel like it's always tough because it seems like NA every year is like, oh, this is the best chance NA's ever had to go to semis at Worlds. I mean, TSM looks pretty solid. They looked pretty solid last year, too. They probably should have gotten out of groups last year, and RNG was one of the teams that stopped them from doing that. I realize it's a pretty different lineup now,
Right.
but I think TSM, if they play to their best, they should be able to at least go even with a team of RNG's caliber or something like that. So I think they should get out of groups. Beyond that, probably not.
Yeah, and I mean, North America as a region has fared pretty well against the LPL. I think it's like a 60% win rate or something like that, if I remember correctly. But the wildcard teams is really what you should be concerned about, everybody, because
That's why they're a wild card now.
they're the one region that can't beat wildcard teams consistently. Like if I saw a graphic last year or after MSI or something where it was literally about 50% win rate for North America against wildcard teams.
Well, you
Whereas
know what
everyone
they
else is
say.
at like 90%.
You know what they say with wildcard teams. If you can't beat them, join them. So
And
NA,
and you did.
wildcard region, so it's all good.
There you
It's
go.
all good now.
And it's all good. Final question for us and for Cold Bubby Guy.
Okay, here we go.
Who do you think SKT will be bringing to Worlds between Huni, Peanut, Untara, and Blank? Because I think they can bring
One sub, right?
one sub, yeah.
I feel like Hooney's probably the odd man out in this sense, just because I think Kog'maw and that coaching staff and that team is pretty comfortable with the Peanut Blank combo, so I don't see them splitting them up. And I think Hooney's a guy who, if you have to rely on him for every game, he's definitely shown he can be a tilter,
Yes.
a bit of a tilter. When he's at his best, he might be better than Antara. He's just an amazing carry guy. He can also kind of play tanks now, but I think Antara's just a more consistent, safer guy to have in the lineup, especially on a team like SKT where they don't need their top laner carrying games. So
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's too valuable to have Blank and Peanut slipping in and out. They bring such a different play style. Blank's this kind of guy who just seems to know where everyone is at every time. I think there was a Reddit post at some time where one of his teammates, I don't remember who, but he was just saying in scrims, it's like Blank was going off being like, oh, there are enemy junglers at Wolves. And Ash, Hawkshot comes in. Oh, he's
So
at
map
Wolves.
hacks.
Yeah, that's it. That's what he's got. Only programmed on Blank's computer, though.
Okay, that's smart.
That's why you bring in Peanut when they check the computers. Oh,
They're
there's
like,
no
wow,
map.
there's nothing here.
That's pretty
So
crazy.
he's a genius, but
Exactly.
yeah, I think that duo they probably like more than Hui and Tara. So
Yeah.
poor Huni though.
Poor Hooney. Poor guy.
He can
Go
still
back
come to
to,
Worlds, right?
I think he
can't
can
play.
chill and be like, hey, these games are pretty cool.
That's definitely what he'll say.
Yeah.
Hey, it's a good impression.
Thank you. Could you tell?
It's
Been
definitely
working on
sounded like Huni.
All right. I think that's all the questions.
That's all the questions. Beautiful. Well, thank you very much for sending those in, as always. G2 TSM top seeds. We'll see what they can do for their regions at Worlds. Still the third seeds to be decided. Gauntlet gets going this weekend, and tomorrow at 2 p.m.
2 p.m.
we will be diving into those first round matchups, kind of do some hypotheticals, go through the gauntlet round by round, who we think will win, who the favorites are. I think they're both pretty interesting, EU and A.
Yeah, I mean, EU's, unfortunately, that first match is Splice H2K, and I think Splice has a pretty good chance, especially at what you saw against G2. If they only didn't have to win 3 games, they might be one of those better teams. But yeah, all those other teams have these huge world implications, and they got to win the gauntlet to get it, because Misfits kind of stole one of those spots from them.
And don't forget, UOL, they haven't played for a while. They've probably got some cheesy stuff going.
They still exist.
They still exist. They got some weird picks, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Maybe Exile won't die 6 times before 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But we'll see. They're both going to be interesting. 2 p.m. tomorrow. Thanks again for sending in all the questions. That's the end of the playoffs, LCS, except for Gauntlet, but I include that as something else.
That's something else.
But Worlds is getting close, and we'll be here to take you there. I'm Eric Kummel with Matthew Hempstead. Thank you very much for watching, and we will see you guys tomorrow.